Welcome into the Locked On Knicks podcast. The New York Knicks knocking off the Chicago Bulls 104-103 in a game, Alex, that was probably a little closer than it should have been down the stretch.
Yeah, things were looking pretty easy for them for about the first 45 minutes, something like that. And they were comfortably leading by double digits. And then suddenly the Bulls exploded late. This turned into a 1-point game with DeMar DeRozan with a chance to win it for the Bulls. He does not make the final shot, and the Knicks walk away with a win. Plenty to talk about in this game, including a really well-rounded Julius Randle game where he struggled to score the ball a little bit, a great Kemba Walker game, and a great RJ Barrett game. So lots of good things to talk about all around. Next on Locked On Knicks.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Knicks, and we wanted to thank you for making Locked On Knicks your first listen each and every day. We are now available on all the platforms, including, as those of you who are seeing me say this, on YouTube. You already knew that. I am Gavin Shaw, a play-by-play broadcaster, unfortunately getting into my busy season, so I will be a little absentee the next month on the podcast, but picking up the slack, as he always does, is the great Alex Wolf, editor-in-chief of The Strickland, and also the Knicks beat writer for Clutch Points. And Alex, I'm sure a lot to write about tonight as the Knicks barely escape in Chicago, a 104-103 win. We hyped this game up. And in a lot of ways, it didn't really live up to the hype. Because for like 90% of the game, it looked like the Knicks were pretty clearly the better of the two teams. Whether it was just really good defense or it was that injured finger, Zach LaVine didn't look quite 100% to me. And without him looking quite 100%, the Bulls just seemed sort of lackluster. Not that the Knicks played like a bad game, but they didn't really have to play their A-plus game. And it felt like they were just going to cruise into a win. And then things started going really bad late. Julius Randle missed a wide open putback. Nikola Vucevic hit a three. Kemba Walker forced a really tough shot. Zach LaVine comes down and gets a dunk at the other end. Julius Randle, after the Knicks are barely able to get it in, they have to call a timeout. They nearly throw it away. Julius Randle misses two free throws. DeMar DeRozan comes back down. Fantastic switch by RJ Barrett. Fantastic help by Mitchell Robinson. DeRozan airballs the shot. The Knicks escape and win the game. But what are your thoughts on this one? Because it sort of left me feeling like kind of like, and like I felt like I should have felt better that the Knicks knocked off. I think the last undefeated team in the NBA, or no, the Warriors, the second to last undefeated team in the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I also sort of have some mixed emotions about it. I wish that they would have closed this game better, but you know, you can chalk that up to a number of things. I think, you know, the Knicks are still learning how to play together. They're still, you know, they were in the Bulls building on a night when they wanted it to be a big deal, that it was Joakim Noah night and all this other stuff, which, by the way, kind of hilarious that the Knicks managed to squeak out a win on Joakim Noah night in Chicago.
That's called healing.
Yeah, the only thing that they've got on Joakim Noah right now is this win, other than the like $7 million they're still paying him to sit in Chicago tonight. But like, I mean, yeah, ultimately my thoughts on this is a win's a win. We're not going to look back on this and be like later on in this season, if the Knicks are like, I don't know, like let's say that they keep up this torrid pace that they're on and they're like 30-10, or I guess to make it the exact halfway point, let's say they're like 31-10 or something like that, like something crazy. We're not going to look back on this and be like, oh, but remember when they almost blew it against the Bulls? We're just going to remember, well, they won, and that's all that matters. And sometimes that's all that it takes. I mean, they did crumble a bit down the stretch, which is disappointing. But if we've seen anything from this team, it's that they're pretty good at learning from mistakes, and that goes back to last year too. That's not like a new thing just for this year. It's a Tibbs thing, you know. It's an accountability thing where he's very good at pointing out what the team is doing wrong and getting them to fix it almost in real time. I would say like I would more remember this game for the moments before that torrid last few minutes when the Bulls almost won it. You know, if they would have won it, then it would have gone down as a heartbreaker. But as of now, I'm like, you know what? Let's just look at the positives. Like Kemba Walker playing like Kemba Walker. I mean, I said like I felt like the game the other day was a little more laborious for him. Like I felt like he had to really, it looked like he was trying to bust out of a slump, and he did. But it looked like it wasn't easy for him to bust out of the slump. Whereas in this game, he kind of just looked to me like effortlessly good Kemba again. Like what you would have expected out of him, to just be able to kind of walk in and be Kemba Walker and score 20 points, because that's just what Kemba Walker does, and not have it be like a big deal. And then, RJ Barrett finding his footing a bit. I think that he did really great with finishing on the inside, and his 3-point shot wasn't really there. So it was nice to see him score 20 points in a game where he was only 1 of 3 from 3. And then Randle, I think really, he had the greatest impact of any Knick on this game, even though I think he was the 4th highest scorer on the team tonight. Maybe the 3rd. Maybe I'm mistaken there. Let's see. 1, 2. Yeah, he's the 3rd highest scorer, but only 1 point more than Derrick Rose. Only had 13 and shot 3 of 11. But his fingerprints were all over this game with his 9 assists and just the way that he was getting those, where he was really bending the defense. Had this one sequence where he had 3 just like gorgeous cross-court baseline passes that he made in a row that are the ones that we talk about being like LeBron-esque, like that's like the only guy that tends to make those passes normally. And Randle was just flinging them like 3 straight possessions, 2 of which ended in Fournier threes. And it was a good night overall. I'm willing to overlook the collapse in favor of the bigger picture, which is the Knicks are 4-1. They're first in the East right now, albeit early in the season. And they looked for 90% of this game like a much better team than the Bulls, who prior to this game, like we were talking about earlier, had looked pretty good themselves. So I think this is a pretty big win for the Knicks.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think, again, it says something that the Knicks, on not their best night, could beat an undefeated team. And it was a Bulls team that maybe it came late, but they certainly played with some spirit down the stretch and looked like they absolutely wanted this one. And we saw, again, the brilliance of the Knicks is like, with all that balance, like you don't need everyone shooting well on the same night. Like Kemba could get hot. RJ could get hot on some of those little like floaters / like hook shots that he was making going across the lane. And then you don't really need Julius to have a great night. You don't really need anyone off the bench to have a great night. Like maybe I'm missing something. Like I'm not looking at the box score right now, but if memory serves, yeah, Taj Gibson was fine. Derrick Rose was pretty good. But no one really went off, and the Knicks still beat an undefeated team. It's a new baseline for New York that we could have anything negative to say after a game like this, and that's pretty exciting. I want to go a little deeper on Kemba because I'm sort of fascinated with what we've seen from him so far. I think I'm a little worried about the lack of stuff at the rim. Like the one time he got all the way to the basket, I think he over penetrated and hit like the downside of the backboard. Maybe drew a foul one other time, but that just seems to be a real lacking part of his game. And I know Alex Caruso is like a legitimately elite perimeter defender, but absolutely locked Kemba up when Kemba tried to just break him down with the space floor near the end of the game. The flip side of that is Kemba came into this game shooting better than 50% from 3, and obviously that number is only going to go up after he went 5 for 6 tonight. And that, his shot just looks so smooth, so effortless. Like it looked like, obviously this is the sacrilegious name to bring up, but it looked Steph-esque tonight. Like it was just easy. And he even had the one at the end of the shot clock where this is like a Steph signature, like didn't really have proper form, like footwork was all out of whack, and it didn't matter. Like he was set in such a rhythm that he could still hit it. So I find it interesting looking at those both sides of Kemba Walker. And I'm wondering what happens if the 3-point shot, because, at some point this year, it's going to stop falling at quite the same rate. Does he have a counterbalance? And this is someone who obviously came into the league known primarily for his breakdown ability. But at this point in his career, like, can he flip the switch? Can he still do that? Can he get to the line 8 times when the free throws or when the 3-point shot isn't working? I'm not sure, but I think that is a very important question to ultimately determining the Knicks' ceiling.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I'm still not ringing the alarm just yet because we are only 5 games into an 82-game season.
Yeah.
But I do think, and I really got to give the Bulls credit. Like, we were kind of talking earlier when we were previewing, like, I definitely had my doubts of, like, are the Bulls really legit on defense? And this game, I'm pretty hard pressed to say they're not, like, legit on defense. It's really weird because I thought they were just going to be terrible this year. And even the preseason, defensive wise, they didn't look that strong. But the Knicks were just the Knicks, which is, a strong offensive team for most of this. But like the Bulls, really, with some of those guys that they signed, especially Lonzo and Caruso, they really have an ability to to get after it on defense. So, I think that it certainly didn't help Kemba's case that he had guys like that on him throughout this game, because those are legitimately good to great defenders. I don't know. We had someone in our YouTube comments earlier that's, I think, a Bulls fan saying that he already thinks Lonzo is maybe defensive player of the year, first team all defense material. I don't know if I'm quite going that far, but they're certainly more than capable of really disrupting what a primary ball handler on the other team wants to do. I guess my question for you, Gavin, would be this, and then maybe we can jump to our first break afterwards, or maybe we can leave it on a cliffhanger. I could ask the question and then we can go to our first break. So my question for you when we get back after the break is, does it even matter necessarily if Kemba is a little bit cooked with finishing on the inside, considering that we saw in this game alone, his pick and roll and lob passing ability to Mitch is so good that can essentially almost serve as his attempt at the rim in a way, because he still has that power to draw the defenders in, but then has the guile to put it in Mitchell Robinson's vicinity and have Mitch just hammer it home. So if he can do that, does it even matter that much if he's not as great of a finisher around the rim anymore? But we'll hold that thought, because we got to quickly let everybody know that today's show is brought to you by rockauto.com. And I'm sure you guys have heard me talk about Rock Auto before on the podcast, but let me remind you again, when you go to a brick and mortar auto parts store, it's never a fun experience. You go there, you get asked a ton of questions that you don't know the answer to. They order the part for you and tell you it'll be there in like a number of days. You got to come back to their store to pick it up. And then when you go there to pick it up, you get the final bill. And by the time all said and done, with all the time and the money and everything else you put into this, you may as well have just gone to a mechanic and got your car fixed. It takes all the fun out of doing it yourself and the cost savings, which is obviously the only reason that a lot of people fix their own car. It's just to save money. So, that's where rockauto.com comes in. Why would you want to spend 30%, 50%, or even 100% more for the same parts at a chain store or a car dealership? Plus, Rock Auto is a family-owned business. They've been serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. So they're going to take care of you and get you the parts you need and, not make you have to put up with the fuss of dealing with one of those chain auto parts stores. So if you want to check out what's available for your car truck, go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available. And if you decide to pick something up, right, locked on in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com.
We're back and better than ever, a new web interface for the start of basketball season and more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the basketball and football action this year. Head to the new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus from basketball, football, baseball, postseason, NHL, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, and with that, we are back on Locked On Knicks. We wanted to thank you once again for making Locked On Knicks your first listen today and every day. We are now on all platforms, including, and you know this if you're watching us now, on YouTube. To answer the cliffhanger, Alex, I do think it matters if Kemba Walker has that breakdown ability, more so in the playoffs than in the regular season, because I think the Knicks are probably going to be a top 8-ish offense in the regular season, regardless, maybe even higher than that. Like there's just enough there collectively. Playoffs, things slow down, and you need isolation bucket getters. And right now, Julius Randle, you can be pretty confident that he can get the job done, even though he hasn't shown it in the playoffs yet, obviously. Evan Fournier, to some extent, I think fits the mold of someone who can do that. RJ Barrett, if he continues to make progress, potentially could do that. But Kemba Walker, I think, was supposed to be the guy next to Julius Randle on this team who could get that done. And now I wonder if Derrick Rose is maybe more so that guy at that position. And even though he's a year or two older than Kemba, he just seems to have a little more juice. Had a couple of great drives in this game. One of them where just absolutely bullied Caruso, went right up into his body and finished. I guess I'll throw this back to you, Alex. And this is a question for far down the road. But if you had to bet, I'll throw $1 million on the line. Who plays more fourth quarter minutes in the postseason, Kemba Walker or Derrick Rose? Who would you say?
Wow. $1 million on the line. Who's putting this up? Is it Joakim Noah?
Yeah, Joakim Noah is throwing this up. And the good news is, you could theoretically only do Locked On Knicks like 2 or 3 times a week if you get that kind of money.
Yeah, absolutely. And if it's Joakim Noah's money, all the better. Especially after tonight. I think it would probably be Derrick Rose. I know it's down
that
the line.
Kind of answers your question.
Yeah. But I think that there are other factors at play there, right? There's, in addition to just their level of play, I think there's just Tibbs loves and trusts Derrick Rose with his life. I think there was I don't know. I didn't see where this was reported from, so I don't know if it's legit or not, but I think I saw something that Tibbs is going to be one of D Rose's groomsmen, or maybe even his best man in his wedding.
Oh, wow.
Like, that's already been Rose announced that or something. Like, I don't know if that's BS or not, but I would not be surprised is the point, because those two are so tight and they've been doing this together for years. So I think that I would not be surprised at all if Rose was, closing out games in the postseason. I also wouldn't be totally surprised if both of them were out there potentially. I mean, the only thing is that means that one of Fournier or RJ is the odd man out, which I don't think it would be controversial, if that's just how the game flow is working. And if you really needed some buckets down the stretch, I think perhaps like a lineup that didn't feature RJ would maybe work a little better, because he's just not as great at breaking guys down off the dribble. Though I think he's probably the best spot up shooter among all those, maybe outside of Fournier. So, I guess it just depends on what you need on the floor. But I think if you needed more of the dribble penetration, you would go for Rose. I still think, despite how great Rose is shooting the 3 to start this year, if I needed a 3-point shooting lineup out there, I would probably sit Rose and keep Kemba out there. Just because I think that his ability to hit off the dribble threes is better than Rose's ability to do that still at this point. And maybe that's sort of the difference between the two, is that Kemba is an elite pull-up threat and Rose is more of a driver, mid-range shooter, whatever that you mostly look to lean on as like more of a spot up 3-point shooter. Not to say that he hasn't been dribbling in some of his threes, but I think that he's gonna, I don't want to say regress to the mean, because I think that oversimplifies it, but I think that his pull-up shooting numbers will get a little worse throughout the year from 3, and definitely be lower than where Kemba is at, wherever he's going to end up. But I feel like, all right, let's save Julius for the last segment. Why don't we just real quick, before we get to our second break, get into the nightly Mitch injury scare?
Yeah.
I mean,
we can just make it a segment on every show. Like, we can pre-plan it.
Yeah, like, all right, end of the second segment. We're always going to talk about how did Mitch scare us to death today.
Yeah. By clown at halftime.
Yeah. Like, mascot hit him while riding a hoverboard or something. Like, I don't know. But on this particular night, Mitch twisted his ankle completely nonchalantly. I think it might have been that same one that he sort of twisted the other night too. So hopefully it's not turning into sort of a trick ankle situation with him. But he twisted his ankle. It was terrifying. Otherwise, I thought he actually had a really great game. I think that this was just another, just like the game against Embiid the other day. I thought that this was a game where, despite the fact that Vucevic, I mean, he put up a great stat line, like 22 points, 8 of 13 shooting, 3 of 5 from 3, 8 rebounds, 6 assists. I mean, Vooch had a great game, but I thought that Robinson did a good job of kind of once again proving that this newfound mass is going to be very useful for him. Like, there were so many times where, like, Vooch was one of those guys that was like one of his nemesis before, like, would push him around. It was like one of his bullies. There was a few bullies of Mitch around the NBA. There was Embiid, there was Vooch, there was Jokic, I think, has kind of given him the business once or twice. Cat, I think, has a couple times as well. Just like the big body centers, all were giving Mitch fits when he was doing well against other guys. And now I think that he's finally, it's like he's back to fight all the bullies this year. And yeah, I think he did a pretty good job on Vooch. Like, I would be curious to see, once the individual defended by whatever they call that data comes out tomorrow, what Vooch's like field goal percentage was with Mitch as his primary defender from inside the 3-point line. I think the only problem was that Vooch got kind of hot from 3, which didn't help Mitch's case there because he wasn't closing out as hard. But like on the inside, I thought he did a pretty good job. to my eye in this game. And it's why every injury scare just feels so freaking terrifying, because without him, I really do think that the whole complexion of how good this team can be literally changes on a dime if he gets hurt for an extended period again.
Yeah. I thought, Mitch just as a finisher in this one was really, really good. I think his screen setting is clearly on another level. I thought this was a good catch from Schwinn, who pointed out when he was on the last show that Mitch has not won a jump ball all year, and then he lost this one to Vucevic, which tells you that his quick twitch leaping isn't necessarily there. But then you see stuff like, first quarter, like probably the defensive play of the year for the Knicks so far. DeMar DeRozan drew a double team and hit Pat Will under the basket and was seemingly wide open. And then Mitch came flying out of nowhere to block it and then somehow save it. And then also stuck with Zach LaVine one-on-one and got a block on him. So fantastic defensive game for Mitch. Good finishing. I give him credit because this is someone who, I think it would be unfair to call him like a head case when he came into the NBA, but certainly was not like considered necessarily like, oh, he's just going to do everything to help you win kind of guy. And that might have just been like maturity or just like know-how, but he's rolling hard every single time he sets the screen, and he gets the ball like 1 out of every 8 times. But you can see like it's sucking a defense. Like there was a play where Kemba just had a wide open kick out to RJ, and RJ missed the 3, but it's only because Mitch like dove knowing he wasn't going to get the ball. So I think it's very much a new Mitchell Robinson. He's clearly put a lot of weight on Alex. Maybe he's just been snacking on some Built Bars in his free time.
Perhaps that is the case, though I don't think Built Bar is our sponsor here.
Well, that was not an ad. That was just speculation. Maybe some Postmates. Let's get into
free
it.
pub for Built Bar.
Yeah, it could be either. Anyways, do you smell that? Oh wow, some vegan chicken parm, my favorite. Is that some arrabbiata sauce on there? Maybe some tapioca-based cheese. Yum! But the best part that it showed up at my door because I ordered it with Postmates. With Postmates, I get all my favorite foods from the local restaurants in my neighborhood delivered, not leaving the house, and even better, no getting in the car or finding a parking spot. And Postmates isn't all just burritos and sushi. I can order things like toothpaste, yummy, and phone chargers on demand too. That's because places like Walgreens and 7-Eleven are also on Postmates. My favorite part, when the app lets me know that my food or items have been delivered, everything is right outside my door. So cool. That never gets old. Just download Postmates on iOS or Android, find your favorite foods or that one thing you forget to get from the store, and get it delivered on demand. And for a limited time, Postmates is giving just our listeners a little something. New customers will get 50% off your first 5 orders of $50 or more when you use the code LOCKEDONNBA. That's code LOCKEDONNBA to get 50% off your first 5 orders of $50 or more. Max savings of $100 per order. Just download the Postmates app or sign up online. It's super easy. Offer is subject to change and taxes and fees apply. Offer valid for 30 days after you add the promo code to your account.
And you know what? This episode is also brought to you by Sweatblock. Let's relate this to Mitch again. He's been huffing and puffing, getting that conditioning back after putting on all that muscle mass and trying to play himself into shape. He's been looking pretty sweaty out there, and I wonder if at times during the game he feels like he wishes that he was sweating a little less from his armpits. And so if that's the case, I think Mitch should maybe give Sweatblock a try. I've certainly used it and had great results. You take one of their wipes, dab it on your underarm, and you wash off the excess the next morning, and then it protects you for up to 7 days with your one Sweatblock wipe. It's really fantastic, and it definitely works. Don't take my word for it, though. We've got some fans and friends of Locked On who have tried Sweatblock and love it. Let me tell you about a Hollywood producer, straight out of Hollywood. We have a producer who is working on the set of a Marvel movie. Maybe you've heard of it. Maybe it's Spider-Man No Way Home. That would be sick. She was working 18-hour days for weeks in the Atlanta heat. She heard about Sweatblock, started trying it, and she loves it. No more sweaty production days. She even reports that one of the A-list actors uses it. The copy says maybe the green one. Maybe it's, spoiler alert, Tobey Maguire, who I don't think has been confirmed just yet. But, I think that's definitely happening in the new Spider-Man. Anyway, maybe one of the actors is using it to stay dry on set as well and on the red carpet. If you want to check out Sweatblock for yourself, definitely do so. It's available at CVS and Amazon. It's been the #1 antiperspirant on Amazon many times for years. And you can, again, stop excessive sweat for up to 7 days per use. It's doctor created and doctor recommended and comes with the dry shirt guarantee, which guarantees that it will keep you dry or your money back. And you can use it anywhere: armpits, chest, back, feet, hands, or other places. So if you want to get some for yourself, get it today for 20% off at sweatblock.com with promo code Locked On, or at Amazon and CVS. And with that, Gavin, with our very Mitch-centric ad break, we return to finish talking about this game. I feel like we haven't really done Julius Randle justice yet. Although I briefly talked about him earlier. Again, 13 points, 16 rebounds, 9 assists, a steal. Only shot 3 of 11 from the field, 0 of 2 from 3, 7 of 10 from the free throw line. Unfortunately, that line was sullied a little bit down the stretch of the game when he missed 2 free throws that would have put the Knicks up 2 and then by 3 right before the final shot, where they were only up 1, and it would have been a game winner for DeRozan. So that's not great, but it was an off shooting night for Randle. It didn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, because with the Knicks getting the win, it's all good with those last couple free throws. But I thought that he had just such a visionary passing performance in this game. And I mean, I already highlighted the 3 passes that he made along the baseline, where he just whipped it to the corners. And I mean, they were just gorgeous, gorgeous looks where he drew the defense in and then just somehow managed to find the ball around like 3 people to get it over to the corner for Evan Fournier. And I think the first one might have been to Kemba. I forget, if I'm being honest. I just remember the 2 to Fournier very distinctly, because it was a pretty cool and key moment in that quarter there. But anyway, Gavin, I figure I'll throw it to you. You have a little bit better of a flashbulb memory for great passes and plays than I do. So what were some of the plays from Randle that stood out for you in this game?
Yeah, I'll take the compliment, Alex. He was absolutely fantastic in this one. It felt like he's playing this game as almost like an old school point guard, where like you hear from some of the greats, like the Larry Birds of the world, where they're like, I'm going to score like 50 points left-handed in this game, or Magic Johnson saying like pregame to someone, I think I'm just going to get like 20 assists tonight. That's sort of what it felt like Julius Randle was doing. He's like, I know I could score, but I kind of want to get everyone else going. I started off early, baseline drive, kick out to a wide open corner 3 for Fournier. And that was sort of the drive and kick, particularly the baseline drive and kick, was a key part of his game tonight. Had an absolutely dirty fadeaway over Zach LaVine, mixing in a little scoring. Then another baseline driving kick to the wing for Kemba for an easy 3. This was my favorite pass of the game for him. He had a like fake step back, and then sort of gave like a little pump, got LaVine up in the air, and then took a step forward, slip pass between him and Vucevic to Mitch for a dunk. Second straight game, we've seen Randle set up Mitch for an easy put in with a little slip pass. And I think the craft for Julius around the basket, like I'd be curious if no one's written about this, and maybe it was something that he went to more a little bit earlier in his career, but it feels like he's really worked on his like post game. And that sounds weird, but he's not scoring out of the post, but we've seen him a number of times just have these little like fakes and step throughs and pivots, and they're leading to like easy passes or occasionally open layups for him. And it's a fun added dimension to his game. The underrated part of Julius, or maybe under talked about, I shouldn't say underrated, he's now shooting like 30% from 3 this year. And again, I think very similar to Kemba, where it's small sample size and probably those things even out, but certainly something to watch, given that, again, for his career, right around a 30% 3-point shooter, actually maybe even a little bit less before last season. And then last year obviously explodes. This year, we all sort of expected more of the same. He has not shot the basketball so far this year the same way he did last year, not just from 3, but hasn't been quite the mid-range assassin he was last year, where he set a pretty much impossible standard. This year, getting easier looks, new teammates. I'm inclined to think it's a small sample size thing, but I would say worth watching going forward.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't want to entertain a world where Randle regresses a lot from 3, but maybe he ends up shooting like 35%, something like that this year, and that would be fine. I think, I mean, obviously you prefer for him to shoot more like 38-ish, like I don't think I would expect him to shoot 40% again like he did last year, because that was crazy. Like and that's kind of the empty gym effect. Like I expected some regression from everybody this year, Randle included. And so that's not an exclusively Randle thing, but you would hope that he would even out somewhere around like 38%. Realistically, we're only one hot shooting stretch away from him blasting that number back up to 40% again too. So yeah, it's just something to keep an eye on. Basically everything that we talk about now big picture wise, it's just like, keep an eye on this because we can't make any conclusions yet. There's no proclaiming anything at this point in the season, except for that the Knicks are the best team in the East, because that is true right now. That's the only thing we can comfortably say about this season at the moment. But otherwise, everything else is very speculative. It's just, I hope that Randle's shooting comes around a little bit more. But even if it doesn't, I mean, even if he evens back out to roughly like 35% was where he was with the Pelicans the year before coming to the Knicks. And if that's where he gets back to, I still don't think it's the end of the world, because I still think no matter what, last year established that teams are going to respect him from three, I think, basically for the rest of his career now. Because even if he only makes 35% from now on, that's still a good enough percentage with his reputation as a shooter that he'll still draw attention in that way. So I'm not too worried about that going forward, though I do hope that the percentage improves a little from where it is right now. 30%, if he shot that for the whole year, that would be pretty bad by, comparison to what we were expecting this year, based off what he did last year. I'm trying to think who else we haven't really touched much on yet. I guess RJ Barrett. I don't think we've really quite done him justice yet. RJ, I thought, had a really good game. I touched on this again earlier too, just like I said with Julius, where I touched on his passing, but RJ was pretty impressive. Scored 20 points, 8 of 15 shooting, and only got 3 of those points from the 3-point line. He was 1 of 3 from 3, 3 of 3 from the free throw line. And I thought what was most impressive was just his ability to overpower people in this game. The Bulls, like we've been saying, have some like pretty good defenders on their team. And the one that really stands out to me was there was one finish, I think it was in the fourth quarter, perhaps it was in the third, but either way, RJ just kind of got going downhill and had Lonzo Ball on him, who, is a great defender. He was getting really handsy in a good way, like as a defender, where it looked like he was maybe going to strip RJ or something like that. And RJ like just kind of tucked the ball in and used his strength to just kind of like brush Lonzo off and then get up and finish. And it was a really, really great finish against Lonzo there. And I just thought that was kind of emblematic of his night. He just kind of went out there and was like, I'm strong. I can do this. And just did it. And that was basically it. And he scored most of his points in that fashion, like just getting to the rack and finishing through light amounts of contact, or sometimes heavier amounts of contact, and having a real game for himself.
Yeah, he was fantastic. You could tell that with his shot being somewhat inconsistent so far this year, there was an emphasis by the coaching staff, and maybe from other players, maybe just from him, that he get all the way to the basket in this one. And to your point, it felt like he was able to do that with consistently. That like lefty hook he had for what I think was his final basket was just absurd. It feels like this was a little bit representative of some of the stuff we saw on Team Canada from him this summer, where it really looked like he improved. Like, I don't want to say his in-between game. I'll almost call it his no man's land game, from like 3 to 5 feet away from the basket. Like, and his package of floaters, his touch has just gotten a lot better. That was an area as a rookie where he got a ton of those shots and he missed a ton of them. And then to your point, the ability to, like, when there were windows, to get all the way to the rim, even just getting a lob to Mitch, like I consider that, that's the same thing as him getting it done. And then just like driving past Levine for a reverse layup, or attacking Levine's body in transition for a layup. Like it was a good combo of, like, when he couldn't get all the way there, he had to touch to finish. But anytime there was a window to get all the way there, he did, and he got a good shot off. So fantastic game for RJ Barrett. I think last guy I want to shout out in this one, like, it was honestly like very forgettable night for Emmanuel Quickly. 1 for 7, 0 for 4 from 3, no assists, easily his worst game of the year. Very forgettable night for Alec Burks, even though he hit 2 threes. Obi had one really nice and one where he like switched hands, but outside of that, just a run out of a layup. Another quiet night for him. Taj in his return was typical Taj. 6 points, 6 boards, 3 blocks, 4 fouls somehow in 19 minutes. So I honestly like barely noticed Taj Gibson out there tonight, and still that's a pretty ridiculous stat line in all senses for 19 minutes. But Rose, I thought, at points forced the issue. Like he took a off the dribble 3 early in the shot clock, which is not a shot he would typically take. But again, just a couple of possessions. Like I think within 5 minutes of him being in, he already had 3 layups, and you could tell he was trying to give the Chicago faithful a little bit of the old D-Rose, and they got a bit of it. Like, you still see the strength, you still see the explosiveness there. And again, I guess this brings the conversation full circle because that is clearly the advantage that he has over Kemba Walker for the Knicks. And I think it's a perfect split with him coming off the bench, because off the bench, you really do need that engine. In the starting lineup, Kemba's spot up shooting, such an advantage. And it's a beautiful world right now for the New York Knicks to have both of them.
Yeah, I think so too. And, I'll just add on to your point there. I think with Taj and Rose, I think that of all the people that would potentially feel the effect of this night in Chicago, where they were like honoring Joakim Noah, which of course means by proxy honoring Derrick Rose and Taj Gibson and their contributions to the teams that Noah was a part of that were so fun in Chicago. I think they sort of felt the weight of the moment, and it's not like they wilted under pressure or anything, but yeah, I do think Taj, it felt like, was just kind of like, I'm going to go out there and look almost like the best version of Joakim Noah in the way that he was playing, where he was just hustling everything and getting all the rebounds and being in the middle of everything. Whereas Rose, I think, kind of forced the issue a little bit, although it's not like it led to bad results or anything. Like 12 points on 5-10 shooting in 19 minutes is absolutely nothing to be ashamed of as a night's work in the NBA. So I think that Rose did a pretty good job overall, even though he seemed to be sort of caught up in the moment a little bit. And, you could see when they did the little tribute, like Taj and Rose reacted to it. Tibbs hilariously stayed like stone faced the entire time, but I'm sure that Noah, knowing Tibbs, would not have wanted it any other way. So, that was just pretty funny. I'm sure that Tibbs went up to him after the game and had some nice moments or whatever and said, by the way, give me that $6 million back because you cost me some free agency money this year. But anyway, I think that's pretty much all I got, Gavin. Do you have anything else to add to this before we wrap up?
No, all good.
Yeah. All right. So this concludes another episode of Locked On Knicks. Thank you all so much for listening. We will be back tomorrow to close out your week, a little weekend pod with a really cool guest. Gavin, do we want to say who it is, or we want to keep teasing? I kind of like teasing it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think people who made it to like the end of the show deserve to know.
All right, go ahead. You could drop it because you secured this lovely guest for us.
All right. Yeah, it's the fantastic Miran Fader. She is a writer for The Ringer. She recently wrote a book on Giannis Antetokounmpo. And she's one of the best writers out there. And the reason we're having her on is because she recently did a profile of Immanuel Quickley. That is absolutely fantastic. So if you want a little preview of tomorrow's show, head over to The Ringer, read Miran's piece. It's really, really good. Lots of fun anecdotes. Good stuff on Immanuel Quickley's mom, man. She makes you want to run through a wall. It's really, really exciting. Yeah.
And great prep to listen to before the episode.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Anyway, so check that out and check out the actual pod with Miran tomorrow. We will be back then. Until then, be good. Subscribe, especially if you're on YouTube, but also if you're on any podcast platform. And peace out.